What's up, guys? Welcome to the first Kind of Funny Gamescast of 2021. As always, I'm Tim Gettys, joined by one of the coolest dudes in video games, Greg Miller.
It's funny you say one of the coolest dudes, Tim, because I'm a bit chilly today. You know what I mean?
It's got
that chill. But luckily for me, I'm a pickle influencer. The good people at Clausen's Pickles sent me this package for the 150th anniversary of Clausen Pickles. Now, as you know, Clausen Pickles are legitimately the only dill pickles I eat. I love them. I want to go through a little bit here. Now, see, I got a reusable Clausen pickle bag here. I'm very excited to try out. It's a tote bag. It is a tote bag. That's true. There's a coupon. Oh, there it is. I got a coupon, Tim, to get money off of Clausen Pickles, which I'm pretty stoked. But then, Tim, I do have a Clausen Pickles sweatsuit that I will put on right now as you introduce the rest of everybody else.
Will. Oh, man. It's interesting because I thought there was no way it was going to be humanly possible for the new face of video games, blessing Adeoye Jr., to be the second best looking person on the stream right now. Because look at that haircut with that beard. I can't even handle it right now. That is something special.
He said,
man, taking a run for the money here.
I don't know if I appreciate what's going on with Greg Miller right now. Like he's putting on.
There was a koozie too.
Oh no! I don't even know what it means to be a pickle influencer.
I don't want to know. I really don't want to know. The former Imran Khan. Do you want to know?
I kind of want to know. I've been trying to find an opening to say like Greg's in a pickle, but I've got like nothing. There's like no opening.
Now the pickle's in me.
Yeah. Oh, Lord.
No. I don't like that.
Remember who was it? Portillo's that sent you a similar full bodysuit that like
I bought an all over print hot dog jacket from Portillo's is what you're thinking of. Okay. Not this. They're not as good as Clausen's here. You know, Clausen's Pickles.
Well,
you're probably wondering, can that koozie fit around a mason jar? Oh, it can. I'm pickle crazy today.
It didn't even come with any pickles?
No. Well, Clausen's Pickles, as you know, need to be refrigerated, so that would have incurred quite an expense, I'm sure, to send.
Yeah, unlike this. This is the Kind of Funny Gamescast each and every week right here on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. We get together to talk about video games and all the things that we love about them. You can watch the show live as we record it by going to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Just like our Patreon producers did, James Hastings, Sancho West Gaming, Julian, the gluten-free gamer. Thank all of you for your support. And thank everyone else that has been supporting Kind of Funny Day. Every year, obviously, January, we do our big crowdfunding push. You can support us on patreon.com/kindoffunny/kindoffunnygames, or some new ways, twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames if you are a sub, or if you want to do it for free, because we understand finances are rough for people this year. You can just go to twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames, follow, ring the bell, and that will help us with the thermometer. We've been crushing our goals. We really appreciate all of you. We announced a whole new slate of stuff. If you haven't seen that, you can go to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, watch the announcement video, catch up on everything. But the highlight I want you guys to know about is we have a big emphasis on Twitch, where every day after Games Daily now we'll be doing at least 2-hour gameplay streams. We did our first one today as of recording this, and it was spectacular. So much fun to watch. So definitely join up, watch that if you can. But enough about all of that. I want to get right into it because this is Gamescast. You can watch it, youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. Listen, podcast services around the globe. Search for Kind of Funny Gamescast. You know it. You love it. So do I. This week, we are doing the Kind of Funny Best of 2020 when it comes to video games. But I want to get ahead of it and I want everyone to know this is not our Game of the Year video. We're going to do Game of the Year next week, and we're going to choose a definitive Kind of Funny Game of the Year. We have a really fun way we're going to do it. I don't want to spoil that until next week, but you'll see it. I think you guys are going to like next week's episode a lot. But for this one, Blessing actually came up with a bunch of fun categories we're going to go through, like best debut, best story, best indie game, so on and so on. And we're just going to kind of have a discussion about it all, just kind of celebrate all of the amazing games that came out in 2020 and the different elements that we liked, not necessarily coming down on any decision, and we don't need to necessarily vote or whatever. It is more just kind of for the discussion, and I'm very excited about that. But first, I want to start off with our gaming highlights for the break that we had. We all had about 2 weeks off. All of us had a lot of little things to do here and there. but I'm sure that a lot of that was filled with some video game and some high quality video game playing. Blessing, what you been playing?
Been hooked on Bloodborne for the last few weeks. I've been playing it nonstop. I've been talking all about it on Twitter and on PS Love You, which you can check out now. Where me and Greg,
where can you check it out? Where can you check it out?
Oh, you can check it out on YouTube.com/kindoffunnygames or on podcast services around the globe. Me and Greg had a whole conversation about Bloodborne and how you can start Bloodborne because spoilers, Greg is going to jump into Bloodborne and play this month, which I'm very excited about because I really enjoyed it,
brother. It's already started, brother.
Oh man. How's that journey going for you so far?
It was good. If I wasn't exhausted last night, I would have played more. But, you know, I mean, we did it on the stream. You were there. Imran was there. Tam was there. We started. Mike was there too, but he wasn't doing much. You know what I mean? We were there. We started it up, and yeah, I played like an hour and a half, 2 hours, I think, to start it off. I'm in there. I got the feel for it. I'm ready.
Yeah. And so I don't want to go into it too deep because this is a conversation I think we're gonna have throughout the month on PS Love You as we like do this whole book club thing and have it be Bloodborne month. But it's a fantastic game that I think it's worth anybody trying out. I don't think it's a game for everybody, but it is now that I've completed it and I've had time to kind of sit with it. And
hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. I gotta stop for a second. No, Jen, I got a sponsor from Clausen's Pickles. They sent me a whole bunch of Clausen's Pickle stuff because Clausen Pickles. They legitimately are my favorite pickle. Okay, so don't worry about it. They went.
Just the fact that you interrupted.
You interrupted him to say, "I love pickles."
Like every time you take it like from the jar, it looks like you're drinking pickle juice. Like I can't get.
I was thinking the same thing.
I know.
Like I know there's water in there, but every time I see it, I'm like, is there pickle juice in there? Like
I can go if you want. If you want to give me a 10-minute intermission, I can go dig through my photos and I can find a photo from college of me drinking from Clausen Pickles, like an actual thing of just drinking the pickle juice because I like.
Do the rest of y'all have favorite pickles, or is it just?
That's a very, very solid point, Barrett. God, no, I do not have a.
Yes, there's a reason I'm saving $3.50, and you idiots are paying full price.
Anyway, Blessing, you were talking about Bloodborne. You're talking about how much you love it. You beat it.
I beat it. I'm on the final boss of the DLC. I got all the endings in the main game. Like I've been enjoying it with the help of Imran too, because during the break, I realized that the thing that helped me get through Bloodborne was actually streaming it and playing it alongside people. And so Imran was actually there for most of the time as I was playing through the game, and he was there giving me tidbits about lore and stuff, helping me kind of strategize how I was going to play, helping guide me through some of the areas because the game can be very maze-like in some places, and that actually helped me really enjoy the game because, as I was talking on PS Love You, I've explained this, but like it feels like a good game to play as a communal experience. There's something about the game that I feel like is tailored toward playing with the community and like reading notes from people and reading guides, and like not that you have to read a guide to play this game, but there's something special I think about experiencing this game with other people that I think is really cool and that very much uplifted my experience with it. And so
playing with you guys yesterday, right? That was the feel of it, because I've started Bloodborne multiple times, like just like okay, cool, I get it, but I don't play it for long, and I feel like it's not obtuse in a way you wouldn't understand it if you played it without reading anything or doing anything, right? But it's helpful to get those things early on. Of I'm collecting the echoes, then I die, then I'd go get them back, then I would die, and then somebody else killed me and I'd lost them, and it was like, well, what am I even doing this for, right? But then to go back and have him run, be all right, now that you've seen that boss, now when you talk to this woman, now you'll be able to do that with the echoes, let alone the fact that you can run back to the lamppost at any time and go exchange them to level up. I was like, oh, it's like even the 2 hours we put in yesterday of it, right? I'm excited to start now, even if I just want to go grind and then see what leveling's like, and if that can make the rest of it easier for me or give me bigger dodge windows or whatever.
Exactly. And even as you get deeper into the game, for me, I knew there were things where even as I started to get a grasp of the world and the mechanics and all this stuff, there are certain things that I just hadn't realized. Like I think it was Imran or maybe people in chat or both who were talking about how insight, which is like a I guess collectible in the game, or a thing that you can gain in the game, the more insight you have, the more you start to see things. And like that wasn't a thing I like put together in my own playing of the game.
What does that mean?
So insight, go for it, Imran.
There's like enemies in the game. So the conceit of the game is that there's stuff that you just can't perceive, like a Lovecraft style thing. So there are enemies in the game that with more insight do weirder stuff to you. So they will have more attacks if you have more insight. On the other hand, like that's generally the best way to play the game because you are seeing like giant monsters around that you just wouldn't see if you had lower insight. And it's a cooler way to like understand more of the story, even though it is like quote unquote more dangerous.
Yeah, it feeds into like the HP Lovecraft ness of it too, because like there's the whole idea of in HP Lovecraft of like gaining so much knowledge that it drives you insane because you've seen something that is so otherworldly or so out of your humanly understanding that it just fucks you up. And insight, I believe, is kind of tied into that, and the idea that the more and more you start to understand, and the more and more you start to see, the more and more things start to appear, I guess, and the more and more that can drive you insane. I don't like learning that stuff as I've been playing through and kind of getting an understanding of the world of Bloodborne and how that kind of ties into HP Lovecraft and all this different stuff has been such a cool experience. And yeah, like it is pretty much uplifted by the fact that I am playing it with other people and having those conversations and then either reading guides or watching YouTube videos and ingesting it that way. And so it's been a fantastic time playing this game over the break. I've actually made the commitment now to start Sekiro. I've said it. I think I said it on stream yesterday. I think I'm gonna start it with no mic on my Thursday stream. Yeah, and so Sekiro's the next one. I'm very excited to play it.
Wow.
I've never seen anyone play Bloodborne like I've seen Blessing play Bloodborne, which is there are people who are like very aggressive and like they will take out bosses like it's nothing, and they will also just run up to all kinds of enemies and run through stuff. Blessing does like he will be incredibly timid against the regular Joe Schmo enemies, but he will destroy bosses like nothing. Like they're just regular jobbers. And it's like he goes to the hardest boss fights that took me 12 to 15 tries, took most people a lot of tries, hours of like effort. And he'll be like, yeah, I just put him in a corner and I hit him a bunch of times. I'm like, what are you doing? How is that possible? Meanwhile, I saw him fight an enemy that is literally just a bunch of people inside of a box, like 15 to 20 times. And it's so confusing, Blessing. I don't understand.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Bloodborne is 1000% a horror game. I don't know why more people don't talk about it as a horror game, but it is a terrifying game. And there are so many terrifying enemies in Bloodborne that get to me and that I have issues with like fighting more so than a boss. And I don't know why. Like I don't know what it is about that scaling, but the boss in Bloodborne I just find super fun. And like that's my favorite part of the game. And I do like for most of the bosses in the game, I beat in relatively, I guess, few tries, with the exception of a few being the final boss and then the DLC final boss I've struggled a lot with. But all the other bosses, I was like, oh yeah, this ain't that hard. Regular enemies in that game though, fuck me up. And so, good game.
Imran, what about you?
All I've been playing this break, as I've been trying to like get the Game of the Year stuff like done and ready, was I put a bunch of more hours in the Yakuza 7, which is if I critical path that game, I think it would be quite a bit shorter. But every time I go do something, like 15 more things open up. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I will go do more business stuff. I will go do more side stories. Oh wait, there's a Mario Kart minigame that's now opened up that has its own story attached to it. So I should go finish that up. And then they want me to take a break from that, so I'm gonna go do some other things. It's been like that for like it was like literal days where I would just keep doing stuff like that. Then Reb is also playing, and so we would like exchange notes at the end of the day. Be like, oh yeah, this and this is happening. And then I remembered like there was a point where like this is a thing I'd never experienced before. Because I don't have a partner that usually plays the same games I do. So I had at one point seen Reb start a side quest in that game. I did not internalize, I guess, that I did not start that side quest. So I spent the rest of the game wondering, why is this side quest not like continuing for me? Like, why is it not like giving me a message that I should go do it? It's because I never actually started it. I saw her start it. And I don't know how many times that's going to keep happening in my life, but that's really confusing.
That's so funny.
I've also been playing Aegis Rim 13 Sentinels, which I don't think we've talked about in the Gamescast yet. I saw, Greg, you bought it.
Yeah,
I don't know if you actually started it yet.
No, we'll get to what I played over break, and it didn't go the way I wanted it to. So things got delayed on my starts. How is it?
So it's good. It is a really good visual novel. It is an okay video game. I think I liken this, like I put a game of the year list somewhere, but like it's like going to the movie theater. Like the gameplay is the popcorn. It's like, yeah, I'm here. I'll do this. Why not? But it's not like the main reason you're in the theater. The main reason is it's a really interesting time travel story. There's some aspects of it that I think are a little like maybe not great. Not in terms of storytelling, but in terms of the fact that VanillaWare makes like teenage girls naked a lot. Yes.
Yeah, problematic.
And stuff like that. And I'm like, you probably could have avoided this. And for the most, like, it's an improvement over the previous games in that respect. But like the actual story is, there are aspects of this game's premise that I think most games would say for like a late game twist that I think is just super interesting. And it's a real shame that a lot of people didn't get a chance to play it, but it is like Chris Plant did a really good article on Polygon, like, hey, people should be playing this game. Like, you might not like it, but you should at least experience it. And I think that's kind of where I am too, of this is a huge surprise because I did not expect this level of interesting story from this studio, or like honestly just out of nowhere that nobody's really talking about it.
How long is it?
I would say somewhere in the area of about 20 hours.
Okay,
maybe a little
bad.
faster, maybe a little like slower, depending on like how deep you dive into things or like how long some of the battles take you. But honestly, by the end of the game, like the battles are, it's basically like it's like a Muso at some point of I have this one attack and it's going to take out 35 enemies. And like, it's cool to watch that happen. And I honestly think if I was playing it on PS4, the PS4 would choke a little bit. But it is it's not a super long game. And most of the time you're playing the gameplay, you're like, I just kind of want to go back to the story and see that.
Yeah. So what is the gameplay? If you say it's a really well done visual novel, but then it's kind of a Muso.
So it is a tactical RPG battle system. So it is like kind of like an RTS in that things are always moving, but things pause when you're on a menu. So while I'm actually selecting my our weapons and like aiming and all that stuff, everything's paused. But if I'm like trying to just wait for bars to fill up or try to decide who to go to next, then it'll like enemies will start moving towards a core tower that I'm defending. So I've never run into a situation where I am not way more powerful than the enemies. So it's literally just like, okay, I'm going to see the fastest way to just take out as many of these things as possible.
Okay. Interesting.
So does the game, because I've put in a few hours into it, and I actually also tried to play it over the winter break and fell off very quickly and just abandoned everything for Bloodborne. When I played it, the combat seemed very like, hey, take everybody out and it's gonna be a breeze. And I just assumed that was because I was in the tutorial areas. Does the combat ever feel like it makes you think a lot harder about how you engage with it? Because that was one of the things that made me go, okay, I don't know if this game is going to be for me or not, because the combat system is this more strategy RTS kind of setup, and that never really appeals to me. But from what I can understand or what I see so far, it seems like that doesn't matter too much because it's pretty much a breeze.
There are difficulty settings. I kept it on normal, but I didn't. The only like hard choices were, do I want to kill them fast, or does an enemy die fast, or do they take a little bit longer to die? I've never been in a situation where like, oh no, I'm about to lose. It's been like, well, that took about 5 minutes longer than I wanted it to, and that's basically as difficult as it feels to me.
Yeah, from what I've played of it, like I echo pretty much everything Imran said as far as like the gameplay does seem more like popcorn, and it is like kind of a thing that assists the story. And I also echo the fact that there's so much male gaziness stuff in the game, in terms of there's one character who is, I believe, the school nurse, who walks around with the largest breasts I've seen in like a while in a video game, like so big that she has to hold them up with her arms whenever she walks. Like, it is ridiculous. Like, they are very aware.
And she's the only character. It's like there's several spy characters in that game. She's the only spy that's in a like skin tight cat suit the entire time.
Yeah,
which is like,
good lord.
Yeah, like that's.
This is so unnecessary.
It's so unnecessary for a game that seems like it has such a good story, and it is distracting. Like in similar styled games, right? Like whether you want to say like anime or manga styled games, right? Like Persona 5, for example, has a little bit of that stuff when it comes to the male gaze, but never enough that to where I'm like, okay, I can't pay attention to the story because they got titties all over the screen. Like, it's never that. Whereas 13 Sentinels seems to have quite a bit of that, where I'm like, okay, we're going from this cool sci-fi time travel story to then all of a sudden titties in your face, and it's like, whoa, like this is disjointed. This feels weird.
No, yeah, when you're trying to tell people you read Playboy for the articles, like that may be true.
Yeah,
but like you're never going to convince anyone of that.
Does the game I'm looking at just like random clips of it, and it looks beautiful. Some of the character motions look a little flash animated. Like in longer stints of actually playing it, like what would you say the graphics look like?
it looks beautiful. It has that 2D hand-drawn art for pretty much everything. There are some small animations here or there that like do look a little stilted, but for the most part, it's like things like a mech will come crashing down in a story sequence. I'm like, oh wow, they actually drew that. That looks super nice. But it's never graphically interesting beyond that necessarily. It is all nice hand-drawn art. So if that doesn't get you, then it probably won't at any point.
You've been playing anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that was mostly it for me, I think.
Greg, you want to go?
Sure, buddy. I played Cyberpunk all break. All break.
Yeah,
Did you get that platinum?
No. Cyberpunk is bugged. And I can't platinum it.
You got fucked so hard. It's like I was following just your Twitter threads, all of you talking about it all.
Yeah.
And like Greg, I feel so bad for you because it's just such a shitty thing to happen. I think you're taking it like a champ, and you're
Thank you.
I'm sure you're about to explain all this, but
Sure.
I definitely just love your commitment to it. I love that, like, you know what? You got the platinum in my heart, Greg.
Thank you.
That's what I want
you.
you to do.
Yeah.
And I will one day
not only
have it.
got fucked once, he got fucked twice.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Fuck
It's kind
twice
of
on
like
this one.
it's in the same way that I have the Star Wars Racer Platinum. That's the same way you have the Cyberpunk Platinum. They both
I feel like
count.
this might have taken a little more work than the Star Wars Racer one you were
No,
stuck
they're the
on.
same.
And you
They're the same.
cheated. You used a cheat on Star Wars. That's why you couldn't.
Yeah,
get it in the
we're
end.
both silver though, and so it's all good.
Yeah. So hours and hours and hours, after I played Cyberpunk all break. The plan was to platinum that, then switch over and finish off my Hives and Avengers, platinum that, because I got that stupid 50 Hive trophy, which just means that I need for like a Sunday to sit there and just do Hives nonstop over and over and over and over again. No big deal. But with Cyberpunk screwing up twice and then not moving, I just never moved on to anything else. So break, I played Cyberpunk the entire time. I had a great time with it. You know what I mean? Like everything we've said about Cyberpunk is 100% true. Everything you've read about Cyberpunk or seen about Cyberpunk is true, right? Like for me, it's a Bethesda game. It's a Fallout. I enjoy those games. I enjoy them for what they are. I'm sorry for the people who were thinking this is going to be, The Witcher again. This is going to be the second coming. I had hopes it would be something like that. It wasn't. You're ugly as shit in this game the entire time. Like, why does every outfit have to be so fucking hideous? But eventually, in like any other Western RPG, I crossed that threshold where it just didn't matter. Like, I'm still getting better gear, but nobody's damaging me in what I'm in anyway, so what does it matter? You know what I mean? But for the Platinum specifically, right? Yeah, I had, I guess probably in the 10-hour range of the game, run in and done one of the NCPD side things where it's just, the blue icon pops up and it's a mission that's worthless and it's just something to do. I'd run in there and killed everybody. And I of course forgot about this, but remember when it bites me in the ass, I killed everybody and the icon hadn't gone away. And I was like, that's strange. And I'm like, I'll get back to it later. And this is so early in the game that I hadn't done enough of these to realize that's a huge red flag. Stop. So when I guess that was 30 hours into or I shouldn't say that. It doesn't matter. 10 hours early. It was early in the game. Went on, beat the game, thought the story was great, had gone through the whole thing, romance Pan Am. I liked the ending I got naturally when I went back for the other trophies and did all the other endings, like the one I had. Befriended Johnny, you know what I mean? Like by the end, we were bros. I enjoyed that relationship as well. Yeah. But then, finished the story and then did all the other endings and then did all the other stuff for the trophies and then started going district by district, clearing out all the missions and so it's all the gigs and all the NCPD missions that are tied to the trophy that'll eventually fuck me. And had everything done except for Santo Domingo, is it Santino Domingo? I forget which one it is. SD, we'll call it. And when I went in there and started doing it, I eventually got to that one where from hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours before, I had killed everybody and not seen him. And I walked in there and the icon was there and the dead bodies were there. And I went, oh, fuck. Because at this point, I've done dozens of these, right? Like I know what these missions should look like. And I've also seen things that bug out. And I'm like, oh, fuck. And so it just became, all right. I pinged over and over again, hoping I'd see an enemy in a wall. I then walked up to every body and started shooting the bodies, trying to re-kill everybody. Like the icon for the mission is on a bag. And a lot of times the missions are go in and kill everybody and collect the evidence. So I was like, is this the glitch? Is it evidence? I couldn't pick it up. I picked up the bodies and put them in the dumpsters, hiding them, hoping that would trigger something. I went around the block and killed everyone on the block. That didn't trigger anything. I went online and looked around for it. I complained at one night of like, all right, like this is bugged. This is glitched. Like I then went back into my saves and found a save from 30 hours before that was, I hadn't done the mission yet. People totally misconstrued and ran with a false narrative about that. What I was saying is I went back and the most recent save I had that hadn't done the mission was from 30 hours ago, which doesn't matter except for the fact that I had done everything in that area except that mission and where I was, right? So going back 30 hours meant I had to do everything in that area again and that mission. And so woke up the next morning ready to do it, checked my tweet. Somebody had popped up and been like, if it's this one and that one, this happened to me. And the guy I needed to kill was floating in the air. And so I went back and loaded the save that I thought was bugged. Went in there, I ping in, I'm looking at the sea, I'm looking in the sky for this guy, no sign of him. I was like, that's not it. Somebody else responds, they could be under the ground. So I went back, pinged, I'm looking through the ground for people. No sign of these people. And so what I did when I found the save that had it from 30 hours before, immediately went to that mission, immediately ran in there, killed everybody, had it, clear. And I was like, fuck, I don't even remember there being this many people here when I first killed it. So I think it's just like a wave of people just did not queue. And I was like, you know what though? And I was like, all right, like again, I like the loop of Cyberpunk and I like it for what it is. So I'll do it all again. And so I started clearing the island again, the district again. And this time I was way underpowered, which I actually liked because then I was having to think about it before. I put on the Twitter, right? Like I ran into like the Terminator before because my armor was great and I had this amazing shotgun. So when I was this hacker for the entirety of the game, the last 10 hours were to be just kicking in doors, running, just shotgunning people and getting the fuck out. Did almost everything. I got it down to the final 7 things on the island. Or I gotta keep it on the island, the district. And went to the gig called Breaking News. And I'd done this before. I've done this before on the previous time. I'm doing it here though. And walked up to the guy, got the mission from the guy, went and climbed into the area I need to clear, dropped in on the car and got electrified and died immediately. And I'm like, I've done this mission. That's not how this goes. And reloaded, went and did it, fell down there. Great. Planted the tracker on the car, came out. And for 1 second, it said escape the parking lot. And then it just went away. And there was no objective now. And so now the mission had no objectives. And I'm like, fuck. So I keep reloading. I finally get it. I quit out. I come back in, quit out, come back in. I get it. And it's like, I did it. Escape the parking lot. Great. Go collect your reward. I walk over to the box to collect my reward where there's the exclamation mark, but it's in the ground. And I hit the box and there's no reward to collect. And I'm like, I step away. I'm like, that's fucked up. The guy who gave me the gig calls and he's talking about the mission. That was the mission I did before this mission. And I'm like, fuck. And
that sucks.
I plug it all into Google and sure as shit, there's a guy who has the exact same problem on the Cyberpunk forums that are just like, hey, like this mission chain can't be completed because the guy keeps talking about the missions I did before. And now this this one ends with collect the thing, but it's not there. So you just can't do it. And so I started looking through my saves and it's one of those, how long has that been broken? How long has he been talking about an old mission that I didn't realize or something like that? And also I wasn't, not that, I went back 30 hours or whatever. That night I look back and the save I have that doesn't have this done and I'd have to go fuck around with is like an hour and a half back there. And I was just like, so do I want, like every night I was like, this is going to be the night I platinum it. And so it's just like, it was the final night of vacation. I'm like, do I really want to wake up again and subject Jen again to watching me fucking shotgun people to death? And it was just that thing of like, no, let's just wait for the fixes. Let's just wait for them to do whatever patch they're going to do. And hopefully I can walk into the first mission where I just have to kill whoever I have to kill. They're there. If not, and they just fix this thing, then I have 7 missions to do. It's fine. Like I'm not, if I really wanted to, I could sit down. I'm such an addict. I could sit down for 3 hours and be done. Cause I would have to just pay attention to like, not go to the mission where you save the woman from the psych ward, go to this gig first, do that. Does it say the right thing? Get the, but it would just have to be this like intricate, like I'm doing everything and paying attention and saving every time. And I'm just like, I will move on to other things. It's 2021. Let's play Bloodborne. That's a brand new game. Why not?
You also don't know that you would actually like get it this time. You don't know that something else would break.
Exactly. And that's the thing is it's just like at this point, it's so rickety and it's down to 1 trophy and it's a good story for podcasts. So whatever. Like,
yeah. So instead you're forcing Jen to watch you go beat up a bunch of robots in a hive again.
Hey, you know what? I played on the small screen often when I grind the Avengers Hive. I'll have you know, she doesn't have to watch it all that time.
I love it though. So that was it. Because that took up so much of your time.
Yeah, I did the occasional hive here or there, but like I didn't really play anything else.
I want to give a quick shout out to something I've been playing just a little bit. Marvel versus Capcom 2. I was like, I just got the urge. I just got the kick in me. And I was like,
Tim, what are you playing that on?
I want to take you for a ride. You know what? Don't ask questions like that because it may or may not be like the most legal of ways.
Okay.
I own it.
If, like, there's a way that like we could play together.
No, unfortunately, there's not that I know of, at least. But yeah, I own it on PS2 for everybody worrying. But anyway, had one of the very few games that I'm like, I will never let go of this.
I also have the PS2 copy, and so I borrowed it to Tim if he's lying right now.
Yeah, so there we go.
Yeah,
but anyways, God, what a freaking game! And I just want to give a shout out to we've hit a point with the MCU that is like God, I don't even know what the fuck's. Kevin keeps changing my goddamn Google Home thing, so now that was like a New Year's doorbell ding dong disaster. Whatever. The MCU introduced the mainstream to Guardians of the Galaxy and to all these like crazy wacky characters we would have never thought would be mainstream. I mean, before MCU, Iron Man to me was just Marvel versus Capcom, and it's like War Machine was just Marvel versus Capcom. But to look at the 56 or whatever characters in MVC2, they got some wackadoos in this shit. It's like they got like Shuma Gorath, like they're getting just so ridiculously down into the Marvel world that it's just like man, it just is so impressive to see. And on the Capcom side as well, like there's to this day characters that I'm like, I don't even know exactly what game you're coming from, but like what's Little Red Riding Hood or whatever she is.
BB Hood's from Darkstalkers.
BB Hood. Oh, okay. Yeah. But anyways, just want to give a quick shout out to the GOATs. It's Marvel, baby. But the game that I played for the first time this break is Hades.
Oh
my God. Do I fucking love Hades. I've put so many hours into it. I haven't beat it yet. And I think it's because the loop just got me. And the game doesn't have a platinum. I'm playing it on Switch. But I'm like, I want to do everything. Like, I want 100% this thing. Like, I'm every single run that I'm doing, I'm like, all right, I got to get all the purple shit, got to get the keys because I'm trying to unlock all the things. Because I'm like, when I do beat this game, I want to be a badass. I want to be running through just destroying fools. And I'm loving that. The more I play, the more I like it. Like, yesterday on the stream, I kind of hinted that I was going to talk about this on the Gamescast, and I was saying how I've never really liked roguelikes. Dead Cells was the one that kind of got me in at all, and I played the shit out of it on flight to Minnesota and the flight back a little bit afterwards, and I was like, I'm never going to beat this game, so I'm just done. But my biggest problem with that game is it just felt like the things you take with you to your next run just weren't enough to make me feel like I'm actually making progress. But it was always fun to play. Like the different weapons you use were fun, but there was a couple builds that you'd start with that I'm like, I'm going to restart. I don't even want this. I don't even want to play with this weapon. It's not worth it to me. Playing through Hades, the first like 10 runs or so, I was like in my own head, of course, like this is overhyped. Everybody's fucking talking about this game. Like it's not that good, And I just kept thinking, I was just like, I just prefer Dead Cells. Like I prefer 2D platformers. Those are my things. So it's like, this is cool, but like, I don't know. And then I was so wrong. I was proven so damn wrong. Once you start unlocking, you start with like the 4, I think, weapons, and then you start unlocking more. And I start realizing, I'm like, I love all of these weapons. I'm having fun with every single build that I'm using. And there's so many different combinations with all the god powers and stuff with the weapons that I'm like, I'm constantly having fun with this. Like no matter what's going on, I'm never feeling like it's bullshit that I'm losing. When I do lose, I'm always like, all right, cool. I know exactly what I'm doing. And it's fun to feel like every run I have a goal. Every run I have something that I'm actually trying to accomplish. Like, okay, I need 3 more keys. I just got to focus on the keys. I got to make sure I get those keys. And it's like, that's fun. It gives you that one more run. But it's not just an aimless thing. It's like, you're always feeling like you're making some progress. And God, that is such a good feeling on top of great story, great characters, all that stuff. The one thing that I still don't agree with everybody is the music, where I'm not as in love with it as everyone else seems to be. Specifically, the first area's theme. It's a little like weird electronic music. I'm just like, I don't know, like this isn't the vibe that I expected based on all of the based on the look of the game and based on like how everyone's hyped it up. But this is definitely, it's been winning so many Game of the Years. I'm like, yeah, it deserves a lot.
I think for me, the music is like not as much the actual while I'm in battle kind of thing, because like I'm not even paying attention to the music then. Like I'm too focused on what I'm doing. But like when you've seen the lady when you go to the second area, right? Like you occasionally come across a woman who's singing.
Oh yeah.
Like that moment of like just hearing her sing, I'm like, this is pleasant. Like this is really, it's zen in a weird way. Cause I'm like relaxing. Is I occasionally just like I've stood outside the door and listened to her sing.
With the vocals. That's the thing is like that. You're right. Like that is very much a video game moment of like, oh shit, this is different. And Hades delivers those constantly. Like I'm really enjoying all the switch ups and like the way that characters kind of change as they're talking to you and like what that changes for you and like your understanding of the whole situation. And it's like, it pulls me in so many different ways. And it reminds me a lot of Spider-Man, where I typically don't really like open world games, but there's something about Spider-Man that I'm like, I want to get every backpack. I want to do every single thing. I want to do the main story, but like, oh, these things are all pulling me. And with Hades, I'm like, I want to keep trying to get a little farther than I did last time. But I'm like, but first, I got to make sure that my room's looking pretty dope, because last time I added something to my room, it gave me some shit that I really needed that I didn't understand what was going to happen. Like, it's freaking really, really special. So I'm excited to keep playing that one. Before we talk about our best of 2020, I want to tell you about our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Freshly. Last year was chaotic. This year, let Freshly's chefs take care of your meals a few nights a week and take the pressure off of you. If you need to help keep getting your New Year's resolutions to get in shape and eat right, then it's time to get Freshly. Their delicious meals are designed by nutritionists and cooked by chefs and make it easier to eat better. That's the cool thing about this. You don't need to cook this. They just send you the food, you heat it up, and you're eating in 3 minutes or less. Ordering is easy. Visit freshly.com and choose from over 30 delicious, satisfying, better for you meals like steak, peppercorn, sausage baked penne, or their chicken pesto bowl. My brother's been enjoying this. He loves it. It could not be simpler for him. And I love that as well. The meals are always delivered fresh, never frozen, and are ready to heat and enjoy in just 3 minutes. With new meals added each week, Freshly brings the convenience of chef-made, nutritionist-designed classics right to your kitchen, and then your mouth, and then your belly. And I'll stop there. Right now, Freshly is offering our listeners $40 off your first 2 orders when you go to freshly.com/kinda. Make eating better your New Year's resolution and get a special limited time offer. Go to freshly.com/kinda for $40 off your first 2 orders. One more time, try Freshly now, and for a limited time, get $40 off your first 2 orders. Go to freshly.com/kinda. That's FRESHLY.com/kinda. Now, let's do it. Bless, you came up with the list. Let's start from the top. Best debut, first game in a franchise. You want to kick it off?
Yeah. So like you like sent us all the categories after I sent you the categories, and you're just like, oh yeah, think about some of the games that you'd want to include in here or talk about. And so like for each of these categories, I have like a few written down, and I don't really even have like a number one. But yeah, like the whole idea behind best debut is what is the best first game in a franchise we've gotten this year.
Objection. How can we know it's a franchise, Tim, if it's the debut game? Thank you, Imran. I know you're on my side.
Yep.
I mean, really? I honestly, I think it's like the potential for a franchise, if anything.
Yeah.
No, I think like for a game that is not a franchise, I think works pretty well too.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the way I kind of judge it for me, because like there's certain games that come out like Fall Guys is a debut. I don't know when we'll get Fall Guys 2 or if I'm anticipating Fall Guys 2. But like Ghost of Tsushima, we're gonna get Ghost of Tsushima 2. And so I kind of lean more towards the Ghost of Tsushima. Like that's how I kind of look at it, but I understand like if you look at it other ways also.
I think both would count. Like it's just 2 games that are new IPs. Like whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, my first one is Ghost of Tsushima. I think it is.
Long story short.
Yeah, long story short, Ghost of Tsushima is an excellent first game. Excellent debut. For I think all the reasons we've talked about over the year, but namely how Sucker Punch pivoted from Infamous being like a great franchise, like a great series of games, but how they pivoted from making something that was this superhero. You're in a playground, you're playing as Cole, or you're playing as what's his name? Delsin Rowe.
Jin Sakai. Okay.
Yeah, you're playing as Delsin Rowe, flying through the city, taking out baddies, all that stuff. You're playing in a playground. To it being this, oh no, yeah, now you're in the shoes of Jin Sakai, and you're not only navigating a world, you are exploring a world, and you're going through this story that feels way more thoughtful and way more dynamic than, in my opinion, than what was going on in Infamous. The world's beautiful, the combat's fun, and it feels like, for me, Ghost of Tsushima was the birth of something that feels like it's going to continue to be big and meaningful for people. Like, I can't wait for Ghost of Tsushima 2. I can't wait for, like, I expect after Ghost of Tsushima 2 that we'll eventually get a Ghost of Tsushima 3. Like, I can't wait for the future of where this franchise goes. So Ghost of Tsushima is my immediate number one for that.
Imran.
So I was also probably gonna say Ghost of Tsushima. So I'm like looking over the list now, like, oh shit, Blessing said that one. Which one do I take now? I just realized Hades is the logical answer there. Of like, it's not the first big supermassive game, and in a lot of ways takes like cues from every other supermassive game. Not supermassive, Supergiant.
Supergiant, yeah.
Supermassive is the
Until Dawn.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Supergiant game. But like, I wonder if they ever like talk to each other and are like, you motherfucker, you took
one of us
has
to change.
Yeah, one of us has got to change.
You took my name.
But like, I think this game, like, I think Bastion's good. I think Transistor is good. Aesthetically, those games are amazing. I liked Pyre. I didn't play enough of it to really render a thing, but a lot of people say Pyre is their best game. But I think like Hades is where they nail that feel, the feel of an action game. Like Tim, you were talking about, like, there's certain games where you feel like even the minutia is fun. Like, that is Hades to me, because everything in Hades feels so good to do. Like, every small little step, like I'm going to try this weapon now. Oh, this weapon with this thing does this. It's all feels good. It doesn't ever really like, this is a little disappointing because like it's not quite what I wanted, but holy shit, it still feels amazing. And I think Hades like is the penultimate example, not of just this year, but of like in general for me in video games, of like how a game feel can kind of just wrap everything else around it. So yeah, I think Hades in terms of like, yeah.
But here's the thing: do you think you're gonna get? We're saying debut, so I'll take it to the question. I guess not about that, because it's best debut. But we're saying we can go either way. Do you think you get a Hades 2? That's not Supergiant's the way, right?
No. It's not, but I think that they could. I think that Hades is hidden different than the other ones, and I think that like the money and critical reception talks. It's that combination speaks very loudly.
Sure,
and like they had great critical reception to the other ones, but like I don't know. I think this with Game of the Year with all that stuff. I mean, I guess they do kind of have the pedigree of just like people respect them, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the specific title. But there's just I feel, and I still haven't beat this game, so there's still a lot more for me to experience, but like sure. I can imagine so much more in this world.
Yeah, that was gonna be my thing. Is I don't necessarily know if they would go for Hades 2, but I don't think it would be outside the realm of possibility we get a Hades spinoff. That is, whether or not it's a roguelite or a different genre, I wouldn't be surprised if they recreated what the gameplay looks for the next game. But I could see a Hades : something else, or even just call it something else entirely, but it is within the same world as Hades, which I think is a cool idea for the exact reasons that Tim stated of critical reception and sales like speak, and Hades has both of that.
I love Supergiant, have since Bastion, reviewed it way back in the day on Xbox for IGN, but I never say never in video games, but like Greg and the team strike me as they want Supergiant to be a developer that people go, oh, whatever the game is, I'm excited for. And I feel like they'd be the ones right now, like, we fucking crushed it with Hades. What's our next idea? And like, granted, the next idea could be a Hades 2. I'm not saying that, but I feel like they're all so creative and want to do so many different things. Where even Bastion was so critically acclaimed, and we all loved so much. It came to so many different platforms that I was surprised when they didn't do that, right? When it was Transistor instead. And then, we're talking about Pyre. We're talking about how they kind of reinvent themselves every time. Of course, they could easily say, well, no, we're going to do Hades 2. And I'm sure it would be thrilled. I'm going to be fascinated to see what they do next.
Yeah. If it is a thing of like the game probably is going to get a sequel, then probably the answer changes to Immortals, because like it's Ubisoft, of course, it's going to get a sequel. But like in terms of best actual debut of like a game that could be a franchise, maybe a franchise, that's less what I'm focusing on, and more that it's just this game is just amazing. And I think like it is a game that's amazing untethered to anything else. It is not amazing. Like, it's not because, oh, I need to finish the story from 5 years ago, or I can't wait to see what happens next. This is a thing that on its own is just incredible.
Yeah, it's a new idea.
Greg, what's yours?
Again, your question makes no sense. You know what I mean? You don't know. First game in a franchise, but it's the best debut. You don't know what's coming again. So I'm drawn. First off, I probably would have said Ghost as well. But what I'm drawn to do is throw out here, and I know I'm going to get hell for it, and I don't care. Spider-Man Miles Morales. It's Miles' debut. It's his first time being a playable character in this. It's him. It's Insomniac establishing that he's going to be a playable character in this universe, that he's going to be cool. He's going to be different than Peter, that you can walk into this and you don't know much about him or who he is in this game and go from there.
You're a fuck. You are a fucking fuck, Greg Miller. I want you to know that.
Also, if you're going to say Miles Morales, you should give Blessing time to give some objections, as he
I know he's
very
also
much dislikes that game.
Where is this coming from? Why are you jumping on to this bit?
Yeah,
I love that game. I like it a lot.
From what I understand, Blessing really hates Miles Morales.
Yeah, Bear, can you bring up the review crew where he's the only person at IGN who didn't like it? It seems like
if
clear
we
he
directly
didn't like it.
address in that video as the only person there who hated the game.
God.
If we're gonna bring up
so
Spider-Man
sorry,
Miles
bro.
Morales, I'm gonna bring up Sackboy: Big Adventure for best debut, because that is a game that I think could. I think we could get a Sackboy: Big Adventure too, and even like divorced from that idea of what this category is, as a quote unquote new idea for what Sackboy is and what that franchise looks like. I really enjoyed that game. Like, I think that game is fantastic, and I think for me, this is the most I've enjoyed, quote unquote, Little Big Planet. And this is this is what I'd want to see them do going forward in terms of what to do with Sackboy. And so shout out to that also.
Do you think when you talking about Little Big Planet, you start talking about Media Molecule? Do you think Dreams would fit in this thing as best debut game in a franchise?
Yeah, I forgot about Dreams.
Most people
You let
do.
as usually, yeah, exactly, and you let your hate for Miles get in the way.
How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare
Let's
you?
let's move on to best story. I want to lead this one off with, like, I think the easiest answer for me, which is Last of Us 2. I love the story. I love the characters. I love it working not necessarily as its own thing, because, like, obviously you need the first game for it to, like, really hit. But the story that 2 tells, I think, is so powerful. And adding it to the story of 1, I never thought that I'd be able to enjoy a Last of Us 2 as much as I did the first one, specifically from a story perspective, let alone enjoy it more. So that alone, adding to the performances and all that go into a story and what makes, a narrative matter to people, I think it easily is my number one.
Yeah, I think that's mine as well in terms of a number one with a bullet. I think that, it's rare to an extent. I mean, it's rare, I think, that I finish a game and I want to talk to everyone possible about it and see what they interpreted from it and what they took away from it. And then, I joked around about it when we were doing stuff at the end of the year, but like the way they play with themes and the way they play with message and, to use future days in there and have it be this whole backbone, right? Of like, if I were to ever lose you, I'd surely lose myself. And all the different relationships you can put into that lens in this game and see how it leads those characters to different choices and different outcomes and where it all goes. Like, I think it's cheating to an extent, of course, because Last of Us Part 2 is so dependent on Last of Us Part 1. And granted, they are two halves, as Neil always says, of the same story. But like, we came into that thing already knowing so much about those characters and having missed them for so long to get them and then have them go with choices we wouldn't agree with or things we wouldn't do. I thought it was really brilliant.
Imran, where you at with this one story?
I say, I think I just sang the praise of 13 Sentinels, so I think that is up there for me. I want to also go in Yakuza 7. I think Yakuza Like a Dragon is a very fascinating story. It kind of goes a little overcomplicated at some points with like mafia, like where it goes to the Japanese Yakuza stuff, but it's called Yakuza. So of course it does go there occasionally, but like it introduces Ichiban, who is a fantastic protagonist. That he is so, like, Kiryu is a very rigid character. He has a very unbending sense of moral justice. But Ichiban's thing is he has a sense of moral justice, but he's willing to like sit down and talk about something and go with a new perspective and understand what makes someone tick. And we talked about this on Gamecast before the break, but the fact that he has a perspective of, hey, I was homeless once. I lived with, like, grew up in a brothel essentially. Like, it gives him this idea of there's all these people society throws away that I want to champion and protect. And that's something that like video games just don't tackle. Video games don't talk about that, much less Japanese video games, much less narrative video games in general. So I really love that this game is willing to go this like extra mile to talk about here's all these uncomfortable situations, uncomfortable people that don't have this big drama going on in their lives. They just live this life of quiet indignity that society looks down on them for. And you have Ichiban who's there in the story that's there to shine a light on it and actually just champion them for it. And that's something that like we can talk about Last of Us 2 and all that of how it's like a human story, but I feel like it's a human story that nobody is ever going to possibly live. This is like a human story that actually like decently relatable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on my list of games here for best story, the one I put down was Before I Forget. If you remember, this is that indie game I talked about a while back on a Gamescast. That's about you're a woman with Alzheimer's, right? And trying to piece together what has actually happened in your life and what actually is going on in your house and who's actually taking care of you. And it keeps slipping, time keeps slipping, and you keep getting snippets and memories and following voices and shadows in rooms that aren't there when you get there. And, you know, it's meant to be the best depiction it can of dementia of Alzheimer's, and it hit hard for me in terms of like I don't think, you know, that's why I'm talking about it in story and not gameplay or visuals or anything like that. It's very indie and rough around the edges, but the ride had me locked in the entire time.
Before we move on from story, I do want to give a shout out to Final Fantasy VII Remake because that's a story that I've loved almost my entire life, and I think that the remake made some choices that a lot of people might not love. I loved them. And I think that taking away even the end, the entire kind of the reimagining and the retelling of a story that I know so well in a way that I feel is actually a lot more concise and like enjoyable and understandable even to play through without kind of having to add a lot more imagination into it. I think they did a fantastic job of making these characters so fun, you know, and making me fall in love with Jesse. You know, like I was already in love with Tifa and Eris, and I've said this on the review, but like I never thought that I'd be adding a third to that. You know, but like the Final Fantasy VII Remake did that, and it did that through story. So just want to give that one shout out.
I have 3 written down, and Final Fantasy VII Remake was definitely one of mine. Just because by the time I finished that story, it had sat with me and still sits with me as a story I'm going to remember in video games like going forward. Like this feels like something that is iconic, and that's not even just through the writing alone and through story moments alone, but it is through performance, and it is through like certain shots of like characters like zoomed into their face and you see the emotion. Barrett, not our Barrett, but Barrett in the game, like when he gives
no emotion.
Our Barrett has no emotion. He's only sad. Emotion. But when Barrett in the game gives a speech, right, and like you really feel what he's talking about, you really feel what he's saying. Like that's the thing that kind of hit home with me that I feel like is rare. Like it's a rare feeling I had with that game that I ever have with video games, and so I want to give a shout out to that one for that reason. I also had written down Persona 5 Royal, and I don't want to like get too deep into it because I think a lot of the same reasons I love Persona 5 Royal story are similar to why I love Persona 5 story, but with the added stuff. The ending of Persona 5 Royal had my favorite ending of a game this year, period. The way in which I love when stories do weird and interesting things with motive, like with the bad guy or motive with the good guy, and how they play around with that stuff. And recently me and Barrett had a conversation, and we're actually comparing, this is a really weird comparison. We were comparing Persona 5 to Star Wars and how like Star Wars The Last Jedi treats and like the whole Star Wars sequel trilogy in general treats Kylo Ren and the other characters and their motives and like what is Kylo Ren fighting for and all this stuff. We had that conversation and then kind of brought in Persona 5 into it and talked about how the game treats certain characters like Akechi or the main character or other characters with no spoilers, and how like you really get a sense with the sacrifices that characters make in that story, and you know the things that they give up and fight for. You get a sense of who they are, and that's the thing that in Persona 5 Royal I feel like they doubled down on and did a fantastic job with, and made me really toward the end of that game really feel what those characters motives were and what they were going through, which shout out to that. And then my other one, which would be my number one, I agree with you guys, Last is Part 2, for the reason of like out of all the things that Naughty Dog did with The Last of Us Part 2, I think the thing that resonated with me the most, and the thing that felt the most not out there, but like the most innovative, I'd say, in like a Naughty Dog game would be the story. Like this is the most I feel like they've really thought out and confidently went for a thing. And like, you know, certain people may feel however they feel about it, but like for me, the story hits so well and works so well with the things that they're establishing. And yeah, like I think it is easily for me my favorite story this year.
Greg brought up the, texting people and wanting to talk about the end of, or just Last of Us 2 in general. I just want to, going back to Final Fantasy 7 for a second, like gamer moments, I will always remember texting Imran the moment I finished Final Fantasy VII Remake and like having that back and forth discussion where it's like, this is why I play video games. Like I love this discussion right now. So like, that's great. What a year for games.
And to really quick piggyback off of Royal, I've said this a lot this last year. Is like Akechi is Kylo Ren done right, and like there's a lot of things that Royal adds specifically that like just really flesh out a lot of characters that I didn't even really care for Akechi either way in the first game, and then like the things that they do specifically with the end of Royal is just fucking fantastic, and kind of similar to what Tim was saying, like. When I finished Royal, or when I got to like the third semester of stuff in Royal, I was texting my Alex O'Neill, friend of the show, of like, okay, I'm finally here, and like texting him theories of like what's about to happen, and like having that reveal was like, holy shit, like this is that moment to me was like why I played video games. So that's what hit me this year.
Dope shit. Best indie game. I don't think I have one this year that stands out enough to me.
Hades, what are you talking about?
Okay, yeah. It's, I guess that's where like the indie kind of turns into a weird thing where it's like, yeah, they're indie, but like I don't really see them as indie.
Yeah.
That's because that's your box of indie. That's what you're putting indies into.
It totally is. But to me, in the same way that you can put Miles Morales as best debut first game in a franchise.
Well, it's just because it doesn't make sense because there wasn't a franchise. So the only thing that would make sense is there's a franchise that he debuts in. I'm actually right. You're actually wrong.
Spider-Man franchise.
Yeah, he debuted in it. Best debut game in the franchise. There you
go. Okay.
But anyways, what do you guys got?
I think my answer would be Hades. I'm looking over a list to see if there's like anything I'm just missing. And like there's other stuff I wanted to play, like Paradise Killer, I know Bless really liked, but I just never got a chance to play it.
I put Hades at the top of the list. You know, I'm a super giant stan, have been for a long time. Obviously, this one's so fantastic. I'd played more of it on Epic Game Store than I have on Switch still, which is weird because I played it night one of Epic Game Store and then I played it day one of Switch, but I haven't gone back to actually sit down and go over and over and over with it. But I can't argue with the quality of it. I then had shout outs for Bugsnax, which I had a great time going through and collecting, which was a weird game that wasn't. I mean, it was a weird puzzler, right? Of playing through with these cutesy, weird bug snacks and trying to figure out what the hell was going on. But as we talked about it when we reviewed it, right, there was something meditative about it where it wasn't. I didn't feel like I was ever like, oh fuck, I just wasn't fast enough to do this, or oh god, now I got to go back and redo all this. Like there was challenges of sitting there being like, what the fuck, and like when I was trying to fill out the entire bug snacks index, whatever it's called. I'm sure Jen, who of course is my wife, who did a PR first, gonna bust through the wall and yell at me. But like texting Blessing will be like, I can't figure out how to get the fire chi poof, and then him coming back and be like, okay, here's what you do: put the trap here, get the bobsicle. It's like like those eureka moments, right, were just hard enough. I felt that they didn't get me annoyed at it, but they also weren't so brain dead that I was able to walk through it. Like there were so many times that I'd play that game and see the donut on the wall and be like, and bring it down and go, and I can't catch it in this trap. What do I need? And it's like, okay, well, I'll get it eventually. And then hours later, get that kind of trap, come back, get it, and feel that extensive accomplishment. And then the other one I put here was Blood Roots, which is another actually Papa Agenda game, but a game that I had no business thinking that I would like. You know what I mean? Like it always seemed like a high score chaser when you go to PAX and you'd pass the booth and they'd be there, doing all these different times and how fast can you kill all these things. Like I was like, all right, cool. I'm sure I'll try it. And that was one of those games that ate an entire weekend. It's all I did, where I just sat there playing through the story, going through and doing it, and having the thing that caught me about Super Meat Boy that I thought would have been a turnoff back in the day, but actually turned me on, and I'm digging it. Of dying and be like, fuck, and go like the immediate restart of coming back and doing it again and clearing the thing that killed you, but something else would kill you, and then you come back and you die early on something, a jump you've made 100 different times, like fuck, and just over and over and over again for this one very specific stage. Like they did such a good job, I thought, of making it challenging, making it cute with what they were doing, but actually engaging in, you know, a really good game to play.
So speaking of confusing indie games, though, I want to put Ori on this list, but does Ori actually count?
No, because it's Microsoft Studios. It's Moon Studios and with Microsoft Studios. So
okay,
right. But yeah, I mean, like Ori feels indie.
For me, I've thought about this quite a bit in terms of like how we talk about independent games and how like iffy the term is, and like I personally made the decision to like separate the term indie from independent. Because like independent, like Ori's not an independent game because it is Microsoft. Cuphead published by Microsoft, all that stuff. Like we know the weird examples with that. You know, the UB Art games or EA with like It Takes Two and on all those games. But like when I think indie is like a more of like an undefinable term. I feel like we know it's like pornography where like you know it when you see it. It's hard to define it, but like you know it when you see it.
I like that a lot, Bless.
Yeah,
I give
and
you
so like I kind of put
thumbs up.
I put Ori in that category. I'll take the thumbs up. Thank you.
Spiritfarer, I think, would also be up there for me. Like that was speaking of meditative games. Like that was like a really nice, like not at all challenging, but nice little Zen meditation on death, basically, and like dealing with grief and end of life. And I thought like not a lot of indie games go for it like that game did. So that's a game if people were like, hey, what's a good indie game for 2020? That was one I definitely suggest.
Moving on. Oh, go for it, Bless.
Oh yeah, I got a bunch of shout outs then I gotta pick. So shout out to Ori, like you said. Shout out to Fall Guys. Shout out to
Oh fuck yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah. Shout out to The Pathless. That's one I really dug. Hades, and then Manful Garden, which is one that I didn't really get talked about as much this year, but technically it came out it wasn't talked about as much in 2020. Technically came out for PC in 2019, which is probably why. But it came out on PlayStation in 2020, and I played it, and I loved it for that. But my actual pick is Among Us. Like Among Us is the game I played possibly the most this year. I put in so many hours to Among Us. I was playing it nightly with friends, and for the year that 2020 was, Among Us was the game that brought me together with people the most out of any other thing, and really helped me kind of salvage like my social life a bit in 2020 in a way that was just kind of broken. And so like along with that, along with the amount of fun I had, and along with the way that Among Us kind of took over culturally, you know, that has to be my number one.
Best style, music / art direction. This is another one that I feel like Hades is an easy answer, but I'm going Final Fantasy VII Remake. I will again talk about memories I have. I'll never forget the first time I played it with Bless when we got to go to a preview event, and then back in the old days when we could go places and shit.
Hard to believe that was a year ago.
That's insane. But I'll never forget walking to go get some food after that, and we're just like talking about it all, and like we're talking about the boss battle music that kicks in, and like how incredible this whole experience was that we got to play like 4 hours of it. Like the whole look and vibe, and just they nailed Midgar in a way that like my imagination couldn't even do back in the day, but took all these classic amazing songs that have been classics forever, but somehow made them even better than they've ever been. Like and made them new and added new things on top of that. Like all of that, the style of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think is incredibly special.
When Those Who Fight 100%. Further kicks in against like Airbuster, I'm like, holy shit. Like you're spending what is one of the best boss themes, period, on this like Rock'em Sock'em robot. Yeah. And it's like that says so much about your game. And like that's one of those things like FS7, it doesn't have, you know, style as you typically think of it. Like it is in many ways a AAA game, but like I can imagine the rest of that world in that style, which is not an easy thing necessarily to like get me to imagine. And that just means they nailed that art style and that music and all that so well.
Greg,
which category are we on?
We are best style, music / art direction.
Would you like to use its full title? This is, of course, the best style music / art direction as brought to you by Clausen Pickles. Clausen Pickles. They're always chilled. They're never heated. Excuse me one moment. Nothing gets me to a Gamecast better than a good old-fashioned Clausen Pickle.
Are you eating a pickle with a fork?
I am.
Why?
You're not a real pickle fan. He's a fraud.
It's COVID time. I'm over here touching all this stuff. I don't want to be dunking my hands in my pickles right now. Come on now. You know what I mean?
Oh, God.
I think the answer I would put out is Ghost of Tsushima, where I think that music and that art direction, especially here, is what I think of when I think of Ghost, where when we watched that state of play where, you know, they were riding through all the different environments and all the colors were there and it was saturated. And then to show the Kurosaki mode, right, which was the black and white and super stormy and all these different things to it. Kurosawa, thank you very much. All of that, I remember watching like, that's awesome. I wonder if the full game can do that. And I thought it did, where I was always excited. I remember when I left the first area finally after clearing everything and went into area 2, and it was like, oh, there's a different vibe to this. Like this area has its own style. And I remember riding into that tree that's like dead, and there was like Ronin out there ready to fight me. And it was like, holy shit, this game I thought exuded style in that way. And the music's there for it, but I'm calling specifically out art direction here in terms of what I thought made that game and the way the colors hit and the way the colors splash. And, you know, getting Jin the all black outfit or the all white outfit, dealing with those merchants, making a style for him. Like there was style to Ghost, I thought.
Yeah, and with your definition of style there, Ori and the Will of the Wisp definitely is up there for me, of like the combination of music and color, and especially now, like with what everyone was talking about a couple of weeks ago with the 120 frames per second. Like it's just, it was fluid. Now it's like even more just like smooth, beautiful neon butter.
I also, in this category, want to give a shout out to Animal Crossing, which I know is just the style of Animal Crossing, but again, for a game that I put so many hours into and was such comfort food, and what I mean, just even when like now when you know, they do the new drops for content or whatever, and they show the thing, watch the video in the morning while I brush my teeth, and you get the do 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 do. It's like, oh god, like it immediately takes me back, right? And like turning it on and going to that world and seeing again. I know it's just Animal Crossing, which makes it sound like whatever, but like, it is Animal Crossing in 2020, now 2021, right? It is that feel that I had playing it in college on GameCube with all my roommates. Like there is a style and a music to that.
Like I went to Reb's Town yesterday and we just sat and watched the Aurora Borealis because it was like inner town. So like we just sat there and watched it, and like it was a nice thing that no other game can do.
Best style, music / art direction.
Yeah, I love this category because of how subjective it is. I think this is the most subjective category we have, and I'm actually in alignment with Greg. Ghost of Tsushima would be my ultimate answer for the reasons he said, but then also, you know, when we talk about how I remember that during that last state of play that they had that was specific for Ghost of Tsushima, I remember us watching it and being so excited when we saw how the wind blew, and like that was going to be the thing that would lead you to your objective, where we saw the bird would fly by and lead you to a thing, or the fox, and all that stuff delivered in a way that I thought was really well done and added to this feeling of, oh man, okay, this is an open world, but it's not strictly this go through your checklist, go to the icon and do the thing and move on to the next. Even though at a certain point for me in my playthrough, it kind of ended up being that. But
chasing the platinum, it definitely became that. But when you were doing the story, you know, everything else didn't feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I did for the most part is, you know, I'm not a platinum chaser, and so when I beat the game, and that meant that like my most of my experience was that, like chasing a fox and being led to this thing, or chasing the wind, or following the wind, and that being the thing that would lead me to my objective, and not having to worry about a mini map or whatever. And that game is just so beautiful. I used the photo mode in that game more so than any other game. And then when you factor in Ghost of Tsushima Legends into it, the way in which the art style for that mode is completely different than the art style for the main game, and has this mythical, deadly, like when you get into the raid, blood drenched style to it at certain points. It is beautiful, amazing, and I'm so blown away that they were able to pull it off in that way. But I do have quite a few shout outs I want to give to this category. I'm not going to be long-winded. Shout out obviously to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Cyberpunk 2077 would probably be my number 2 pick for this category. I think the style for that game is one of the best things it has going for it when you talk about set dressing in terms of the world building and how you walk around. You when you first walk out into the world after you get down from your elevator from your apartment, and you see the first thing you see is like Johnny, or not Johnny, what's the name of your homie, the dude?
Yeah, I know
Jackie. You see Jackie,
Wow.
and you like hang out at the sushi spot.
How easily forgotten.
Hey, I don't want to
mix up
spoil
with
any of the
Keanu.
choices you do in the game or anything. All right.
But you see him, and like you eat food with him, and you go through, and you see all these different bits of set dressing and ways to make a feeling of this world being dense and being this truly different cyberpunk world. I think that stuff hit for me really well, along with the soundtrack. I think is awesome. Also shout out to 13 Sentinels, Hades, obviously, Astro's Playroom, which has such an excellent style.
That's a extremely good answer.
Yeah, that's one that like even in the way that they use the DualSense contributes to the style in that game, where everything feels so like alive and how it looks and feels in a way that really uplifts the style of that game. And then also shout out to Sackboy: Big Adventure, which obviously has a little Big Planet style, which we're used to, and which looks great. But then also a soundtrack that I think most people are going to overlook because the music, like I remember playing the first couple levels of Sackboy and being like, okay, they're going for something here. Like this has a bounce to it. And the further and further I got into the game, the more and more I was blown away by the versatility of the soundtrack and how so many of the songs sound different for what the level is. And then there are songs in there that are surprises, once you get to those certain levels. And that stuff for me hit so well.
I am surprised, Blessing, you did not mention Ghost Runner.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's like it's in my second tier probably. Like if I had multiple tiers, it'd be my second of best style.
I think I want to also throw out a shout out for Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity.
Oh yeah,
because one, that game has a banging soundtrack. Like it takes a bunch of good Hyrule Warrior or good Breath of the Wild music and makes butt rock out of it, and it's like fantastic. And two, like its style is Breath of the Wild, but guess what? Breath of the Wild style is amazing. So like there are sections, like I don't know how far either of you guys gotten that, but like there's big battles in the castle towards the end of the game that just look amazing because like it's raining, there's fire everywhere, there's like lightning coming in the sky. It's like, oh, this looks like they really went for it. It clearly reflected in the frame rate, but they really went for it.
I want to give some love to Mafia Definitive Edition, where it's like I know like the art style and like the graphic, the art style isn't interesting, but the way that they're able to transport you to that world, I think, and just the world that they were able to build in the Prohibition era, the music and the acting, like that game has like a really cool style that I just want to give some love to.
Also, obviously, shout out to Persona 5 Royal.
I didn't want to say Persona 5 Royal just because I felt
you did.
Like, that counts as Persona 5, basically.
I didn't want to bring out like the style because even though I do think it's more of like a newer game than just an expansion, like a lot of people argue to me, like it's the same style as the base game, but just like 4K now, Although there are some good hot new tracks in Royal.
There are.
Next up, we got Best Remake / Remaster, which is another weird one. But like, we didn't really get too many remasters this year off the top of my head. But in terms of remakes, I got a whole bunch of ones I want to talk about. But I have 3 that I want to mention right here, and one might surprise you.
Ooh.
Number 1, the answer is Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy.
Are you fucking kidding me? It's incredible. I can't believe it was that ridiculous of a success.
It got me to love it. You know what I mean? The first Final Fantasy I've ever completed.
It's nuts, man. Then I got to go and give as much love as possible to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2.
Oh.
They did it. They nailed it. They've tried it before and failed so bad. And man, I don't think I've ever seen a franchise turn around that much. And it just absolutely nail it. And my favorite thing about it is that the music is so important to the vibe and world and gameplay even of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and having all the songs from 1 and 2 in addition to an equal amount of new songs that fit perfectly with that vibe. And it made me feel like I felt when I was a young teen playing these games, like I listen to the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake soundtrack on Spotify almost every day. And it's like, that is crazy that it's new songs. It's not just the old ones that I'm listening to every day. So shout out to them for that. Really hope they keep going. But my last one I want to give a shout out to is Resident Evil 3. And now here's the thing.
Okay.
The game, nowhere near as good as Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 3, way too short, had a lot of problems, some weird choices, blah, blah, blah. I just would love, if we just got that type of game once a year, I'd be so happy. Like, I'm kind of bummed that we didn't get a Resident Evil. Actually, God, time is so crazy. We did this year, but we're not getting one next month. You know, Village is coming out at some point, but the gameplay of the remade Resident Evil games, I'm super into, and I just kind of love the B movie style as opposed to a Last of Us super intense zombie type story. I just love you're fucking these zombies up. You know what I mean? Like, we're going through the hospital and like all these like locations that we're familiar with. But again, Resident Evil 3 was never my favorite Resident Evil. So I think that kind of means that was never going to be my favorite game of the year. But I do think that the remake was really good. The graphics are so good. The characters and like what they did to remake Resident Evil 3 was fantastic.
I think like there are aspects of the RE3 system, like the RE3 remake system, that I like better than RE2, like the dodging quite a bit. I bet that carries over into 4. But like overall, that game, it cut a few the base game wasn't itself that amazing, and they cut a few too many things from that. But it was still a very enjoyable remake.
Yeah, I understand why they don't do this for obvious reasons. But like if RE3 came out before RE2, I would have appreciated it way more. But like going into RE3 with having played RE2 remake, it was like, okay, cool. This is more of the same, which is cool. But if we're judging it as a standalone game, like, I'm not as excited. But for what it is, removed from context, I think it's still such a fun package and still a good time, and it still looks beautiful. And what's his name? Not Mr. X or whatever, but like Abomination. Is that his name? Abomination, the bad guy. RE3
Tyrant. No,
Tyrant. Nemesis.
Yeah.
Abomination is the Marvel.
I was looking at both of you like, what?
I'm fucking blanking, man.
Yeah,
not enough sleep.
Cool. He was definitely like a cool villain.
Yeah. Greg, do you have
I mean, it's Final Fantasy VII, I think, right off the top, right? And I think you got to give a shout out, even though it's maybe it will be after Bloodborne, my cup of tea, but Demon Souls, right? Yeah, like, I think that even for the hour I played of that on stream, I was like, this is enjoyable, and holy shit, does it look great.
That's kind of where I was going to. Like, FF7 remake is it with a bullet. No doubt about that. Demon Souls is a really good remake. There's like, they took an art style that is incredibly hard to translate. They made a couple of changes that I don't necessarily agree with, but took one of those things that like everyone praises from Software 4, and they made it look good again. And that is not only difficult, it's so much pressure I can't possibly imagine.
I want to shout out also Persona 5 Royal. You know, that's like, I've talked about it to death. I don't have to like go off about why it's an amazing, I guess, remaster / remake, quote unquote. But such a good like, I guess, expansion of that game.
Yeah. I want to shout out Mario Sunshine. No, actually not.
Mario 64. Mario 64 is also I should shout out because, like, I know they didn't do the things we wanted them to. They didn't make it 1080. They didn't do anything, but they made it portable. And so,
did we?
I know they did that before.
Yeah, we did. We're suckers.
Oh God, I love that game so much. And then shout out to 13.
No, wait, really?
I'm joking. 13
okay,
was
good. I was like,
it was
that
terrible.
remake's bad.
The one you tried to play on PS I Love You, you're like, oof, God, I couldn't even see that. People were not even loading in.
We have our final 2 categories here. Best ongoing game.
Fortnite, come the fuck on. You kidding me? Let's go.
Yeah, Fortnite is up there.
We all came back to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when I say we all, I mean me, Barrett, and Blessing from this call. But you guys, I don't know if you were ever into it, but we were all back so hard. Barrett's still addicted to it, still trying to get people to drop with him.
I mean,
I started playing
to be fair, I haven't touched it in like a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Gary Witt, is that you?
Yeah.
That's a letter Kenny reference.
But weren't you today? Just today on Games Daily trying to get us to drop tonight?
Weren't you doing this? Kevin has wanted to play, so Kevin and I were talking yesterday about playing tonight. So that's why I'm just saying.
I'm just saying. Then I think you're still in. You know.
Should we do some drops tonight?
We should. Where are we dropping, boys? Let's do it.
shout out to Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath. I just got to. I love that story mode. I know we don't think of it as an ongoing game, but
that's why it's not the quality. The quality's there for sure.
Yeah, but like it's ongoing and it's an expansion, and so Aftermath I loved, and it's a really good continuation of that story. Has me very excited for whatever Mortal Kombat 12 is.
I'll also say Sea of Thieves is like great. Every time my friends and I get together with that game, we have a new story to tell, even if we only play for like a couple hours. Like a couple of weeks ago, we came onto an island and we looted that island and like got all the treasure chest. We saw one ship that kind of like sail by, but we didn't think much of it. On the way back to sell back the stuff, one of my friends goes up to the crow's nest, and there's just a guy hiding there on our ship, and he's like he literally types in he to the text chat and like kills us and takes our stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And that you don't get that in most of the games. I'm like, yeah, there's not a lot of like structure to Sea of Thieves. I think that's why it works super well.
I want to give a shout out to Fall Guys. I was like real into it season 1 and never really got into season 2. Like I think I played it maybe once or twice, but yesterday playing with the custom server with everyone and with Gary, I was like, this game has changed so much, but the core of what makes it fun is still right there for me, that I tonight want to just keep playing more because it was fantastic. So just a shout out there.
I think Smash has been killing it this year. Like, the characters have been slowed down, but like every character they put in has been killer.
Killer. That is true.
Steve's been great. Min is great. Like Sephiroth is just like fantastic. Like I wish I had more people to play that game with, but
dude, Imran, let's play.
I keep telling you, we should play some Smash Brothers.
I'm down.
The most important thing that Smash Brothers did this year, Imran, is finally add all of the spirits, even if you missed them. So you can finally catch up and get them all. Do you have them all?
I have them all now. Do you?
Of course I do.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you. And then the final category of the week is Best Game Studio.
I think it's Supergiant. I think it's Supergiant if you expand it at large, right? I think that Hades is a hell of a game. I think that you want to talk about the quality of the games they have put out as a company, Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, now Hades. I think also it goes far in the conversations we continue to have on Games Daily and everywhere else that they made a point to be like, no one crunched on Hades. We did not crunch. Mm-hmm. Not only did they not crunch, remember too, they released it in early access. They released a game that so many people think is game of the year in early access, meaning that people saw the warts, they did their thing, they put their money down if they wanted to, but they did right by their audience in putting down their money on a game and working on a game rather than taking your money and trying to patch it later. Not that that's a demonization of every other game studio, but for other ones you'd bring into this conversation, I think that's one of them. The crunch stuff for other ones you'd bring into this conversation, specifically Naughty Dog, right, which I think made a masterpiece with Last of Us Part 2, but there were so many reports of crunch in fucking hard-ass work environments and things like that. I think I'd rather see it happen the way it happened for Supergiant Hades. I'd rather see it come out early and be worked on in front of everybody and nobody has to be, destroyed or raked over the coals.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, sorry to interrupt. In a lot of ways, like Hades feels like the anti-Cyberpunk 2077 in a way where, it came out for what Greg said, right? Did early access, right? And then came out and people flocked to it and people ended up loving it. And in a lot of ways, I think Hades is very easily like a good standout story of early access done right in a way that I hope other developers look at them and be like, okay, cool. They could do it. We can do it. And we can have a better release this way that is more natural. And to what our conversation was on KFGD today being Tuesday? Yeah, today being Tuesday, the 5th, right? Like we had a whole conversation about releasing in bugs and like what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, and being able to release and have all your warts out and be this thing that is still in progress, evolve into a thing that is game of the year. I think it's super impressive.
Yeah, bro.
I'm gonna throw Moon Studio because like Ori and the Will of the Wisps did not necessarily launch super well. Like we did that was the last review we did in the studio this year. But like that game was, it had some problems, and they've been like steadily working on it through the year. They put out a Switch version that ran better than the Xbox One version launched, which is, insane for a number of reasons. And like by this point, you can play Ori in like 6K or 120 FPS, and it looks amazing. Like they have a better product now than they did when it launched because they put the time and work into it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the. it's not a weird one, but part of my reasoning is kind of weird. But I'm gonna say Insomniac because going with this, with what Greg's talking about thinking about all the crunch and all that stuff, like Insomniac have also like been very public about what they do and like how they handled not making crunch a thing.
Sure.
But they are, obviously they're making a much bigger game, a much more AAA game than some of the ones we're talking about here. And the part that's weird is we don't know the quality yet, and it's technically not 2020, but announcing Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man Miles Morales the same day, and then Miles Morales coming out being as good as it is, as like full as it is, and as much of a PS5 experience as it is when you play it on a PS5, and knowing that Ratchet and Clank is hopefully coming in the next couple of months, and I expect the quality to be there. I'm just super impressed with their workflow, with the pipeline that they've created, that after kicking ass in 2018 with Spider-Man to then come back and have it just feel like it's this like 1-2 punch. I feel like last year when we had a similar conversation about all this stuff, Bless was really banging the drum, and as were a lot of people, for Respawn, where it's like they're the best game studio. And a reason for that was it wasn't just one game. It was like, look, they had a year of multiple titles that kind of fill, like different holes that people are looking to fill. And I think with Insomniac, we're getting something similar. And it's weird because it crosses over years, but fuck it. I'm saying Insomniac.
No, I think that's a great pick. Like, I think you make a great case for it too.
I also want to shout out Sucker Punch. Like in terms of
Ghost Tsushima
and
bad studio.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I didn't think about that. Putting out Ghost of Tsushima, right? Which I think I made the point before that that being a pivot from Infamous and being a different type of game for them to make, I think was impressive on its own. But then adding in Legends being this alternate mode for free that allowed you to play co-op with friends, and it being as quality and as awesome as it was, I think also is another thing that should be looked at as like, wow, like that's very impressive. And then alongside, like a lot of, for me, apprehension I had going into Ghost of Tsushima, and like I was looking forward to the game. I thought the game was going to be good, but like there are these little points of like, okay, you guys are making a Japanese game or like a game set in Japan as a Western developer, and like, are you going to be able to pull it off? Is it going to feel like it is taking from this culture and not necessarily doing it justice? And it seems like they pulled it off. Like, it seems like they were really able to put out something that felt as authentic as it could be for what it is. And like having our interview with them and talking to them, and them talking about how, we went to Japan and we talked to people, and we got consultants and we did all this work to make that work. I think that looked at and applauded. And so shout out to Sucker Punch.
There you go. Shout out to all of them. Shout out to video games.
Shout out to video games.
Video games are cool.
I'm so happy.
Of course, shout out to Clausen Pickles.
Oh, Lord. I'm so glad to be back here with you guys talking about games. We'll be here for you. YouTube.com/kindoffunnygames. We are about to do the post show for Patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Supporters at the silver membership or above. We're doing a very special Imran or Imright. I think that's what we call it. Anyways,
it's somewhere around.
We can't
remember.
remember.
Yeah, it might be wrong. Whatever.